when we say someone go to the first maybe outside for the first place or can do that point.
Nice one. You tried. That was something that's nice. That's nice. But let me uncomplicate what the Git and GitHub is actually. So when we talk about Git and GitHub, right? We're talking about a version control system. Now, let me use big English and explain it better in a more simpler way. So if you are building, let's say you are working in an organization, let's say you are working in Facebook, and you've noticed something that Facebook over the years, they've been releasing new features on their app, as well as rolling out features. When I say rolling out, like they remove certain features. I'm thinking of one of the features Facebook removed. Okay, let's say, for instance, Facebook right now, at some point, there was nothing like Facebook pages, right? You only have Facebook accounts, and you can add friends, you can remove friends. You understand? So later they introduced pages that, okay, if you are a big account, probably you have a business, you can create a page. That page that they added to Facebook is a new feature. How did they add it? Is it professional account? Exactly. How did they add all of those features? What they did is that they have a version control system that controls each and every version that Facebook has ever rolled out or put out there for users. So you have version 1, version 2, version 3. You understand? So all of these new features, how exactly were they able to save it? How were they able to add it? How were they able to roll it out? You understand? How are they able to remove features? That's what Git is all about. I'm going to explain it again. Let me use another example. So let's say, for instance, we are, okay, I think I gave, those are what we call yesterday. I gave you a particular project to build. Now let's say that on that full application, right? I said you should build the header, right? But if you notice on the full design, it was not just the header that was there. You have the header, you have the about, you have a lot of other sections. But I said build the header first. That header is one feature. So after building that one feature, what happens? You push it out to your users to see. But how do you do that? You use a version control system using it. So whenever you now want to build another version or another product, what happens? You can also still have a track record of every single thing that you've done. That's what Git does. That's what Git helps you do. So Git is like a tracker that helps you track the progress of your project or your product, whatever thing you want to provide. So that's what Git is. I hope everybody understands this little explanation now. When we go into it, we'll definitely understand it better. Now let me give you a simple definition of what Git is. So what is Git? Git is a distributed version control system used to track changes in a project over time. So again, like I said, you are tracking the changes in your project. Oh, today I built the header of my project. I push it to GitHub. So after pushing it to GitHub, what happens? That is that's one version of my project. So that by tomorrow, if I want to add live button, I can still add another project. You understand it now? That's what Git and GitHub will help you do. That's why I say that on Facebook today, they can just probably one feature that they removed before. They can bring it back. Why? Because they have it already. They just rolled it out with Git. So it is still safe, but at that particular time, they don't want users to have access to it. And at the same time, they can add more features. What it just does is that it keeps a history of your code changes. That's one of the things there. So your code is not as if you are, whenever you change a feature on your application, you will not have access to the previous code. No, you have access to it. But what happens? It keeps giving your code. It just helps you keep the history of your code. And the second thing is that you can revert to earlier versions if something breaks. What does this mean? So I want to work on a like button, right? And I worked on it before. I don't have a like button on my application. I hope everybody understands what I'm trying to say. I don't have a like button on my application. So I now added like button. So when I now added a like button, every other thing on my application has started breaking. I started having bugs on my application. what you want to first do as a programmer is that since you know that what is giving your application this issue is that like button, you want to first of all remove it so that users can have access to the application. They can keep using it. So how do you now remove all of these things? Sometimes that like button is probably controlling over 7 files or 8 files, depending on how bulky your project is. What you want to do is that you need to like have a. So let me first of all explain it this way. If you are working on a project, right, there's something we call development and there's something we call production. And you're going to understand this first. This is important, please. There's something you call development, there's something you call production. So when you say development is your VS Code, where you're writing your code. That's development. So the difference between development and production is that users don't have access to your end product. They don't have access to your application in development. They will only have access to your code in what? In production. So production is like a finished product that okay, users can now have access to. Now, if I now finish my like button now in development and I push towards production, what happens? Users will have access to my what? To my production product. You understand it now? But now let's now say they are not having issues with the app. The app is breaking. Whenever users try to like something, what happens? It breaks. So what do you want to do? You want to make sure that first of all you change everything that is not good in production, because you are making money with the website, right? So if you are making money with it and the website is not working, what happens? Everything is breaking. So you need to first of all remove that feature that is breaking users' experience in production. So how do you remove it? You come to Git, remove the earlier version of the feature that is not working and revert to the versions that is not working. Did you get what I just said? You have a question? Please go ahead. Sorry? No, we'll get there. I need to first of all understand this thing. You know what? Let me give you a much more a better illustration. All right. So again, please let us look at this. Let's say this is your project. This is Facebook. You are the owner of Facebook. You are not building Facebook. Now, what happens is that initially you are going to have your product. Let's say this is a feature right here. You understand? So as this is a feature, this is one of the features that you want. You now have to have several features from this feature. So let's say you have like, you have comment, you have share, like, comment, share, right? Now, all of these 3 features, they are working perfectly. Now, you now want to add another feature that is now saying, let's say, post on story. You understand? This particular feature that is now post on story, right, is not giving your application a bug. When I say bug, errors. So it is breaking. You understand? How exactly, let's say it's breaking your application is no longer working. What you have to do right here now is that you have to first of all remove this particular one. That is breaking the whole application. And how do you remove it? Since you already have a place like GitHub that you've stored your code, you've saved all of your processes to, what you just have to do is go back to GitHub and remove this application. Sorry, that feature. So once you've removed the feature, what happens? Your application is now safe. You can now go back to development to start working on the bug that was created. But your users online will still have access to the previous version. You understand it now? That's what Git will help you do. Yes, you are still working on this new feature on your development, just to make sure that you solve the errors. But online, you need to first of all remove it, revert back to the previous version, so that users can keep using your application. That is what Git will help you do. Like I said, the first thing that will help you do is what? Keep history of your code changes. Second thing is what? To revert to what? Earlier versions if something breaks. Sometimes something might not even break. You might just feel like, oh, I don't need this to the earlier version. It happens. Revert back. Something has to break. No, you cannot just what? Remove that feature and revert back. The third thing is what? work on features without affecting the main product, main project. This is something much more interesting. This is actually very interesting. Now, if you understand Git, you notice how interesting Git is. At first, you might want to be like, oh, Git is hard or something, but it's not. It's actually very interesting because it makes every single thing easier. So what does work on features without affecting the main project mean? So let me give an example of my Git. We're still going to do all of these things in details. So just understand this first. Now let's say you have a tree. Please do not mind my drawing. So you have a tree, you have branches. Okay. So these are branches now. Now, this is the root, right? This is the stem. I remember agriculture. This is the stem. You understand? So all of these branches that we have here. Now, I want you to take the whole tree as your project. Take the whole tree as your main project. That's your main project. Because out of the tree is where the life of all of that branches will come out from. Now, these particular branches here are features of your project. This tree is Facebook. This branch 1 here is what like. This branch 2 here is what comment. This is share. This is post to story. This is add friend. This is remove friend. You understand? Just a scenario. These are features of your projects. Now, what now happens now is that I can create a particular branch that says post a story without actually affecting the main project that is here. And why don't I want to affect the main project that is here? If something goes wrong in this branch, I don't want my project to what? To disappear or to spoil. Because as Git is very delicate, Git can make your project go very, very smoothly. And Git can destroy 20 years of hard work. That's why it's very, very delicate. So you do not want to work on the main project. You want to work on branches of that project so that that project is not going to what? Destroy. In case you by mistake destroy it. So the only thing that will be destroyed is what? Is the branch and not the main tree. That's one thing about Git. So that is one thing this particular place is saying. It's saying work on features without affecting the main project. The main project is your what? Your main tree. So you do not want to affect your main tree. You just want to give. Everybody is understanding this. Again, I'm using tree because it is the easiest way to explain it. But Git is not hard. I can assure you that it is not hard. Now, Git can destroy your project. The fact that it is not hard does not mean it cannot destroy. It can destroy your project. It can actually take you far back. But one thing that you need to know, once you understand these things about Git, you should be able to build anything safely. Now, one of the main points again about Git is that it helps in collaborating with other developers safely. So have you thought about it that in Facebook has over 100 developers. We know, right? So in all the countries, so in Nigeria, Nigeria, US, UK, over the world, right? They have a lot of developers. Have you thought about it that how are you in Nigeria working for Facebook and someone else is in the UK working for Facebook, someone else is in the US working for Facebook? How are all of them building Facebook? How are they contributing to Facebook? I've thought about it. It's through the use of Git. Probably not Git, but version control system. This VCS, version control. Now, Git is just a type of VCS. Facebook probably has their own VCS, whereby they allow users developers contribute to their particular code base. But Git is now a type of VCS, version control system, that you can now use collaborating with other developers, even though you are not working from the same system or from the same code base. So from the same system, you can still contribute to the same code base. That is what Git is going to help you do. So 4 things that helps you do now as well. Keep track of your code changes. Keep track of your code changes. Revert to earlier versions if something breaks. Don't work on features without affecting the same branch, without affecting the main branch. And then the 4th one is that collaborate with other developers. That's something Git helps you. Please go ahead. Yeah. Through Git. Yes. Yes. That's exactly what it is. It's a version of it. So we get there. Now, yeah, please go ahead. So, thank you very much for that question. So now, the reason why you have so many developers on Facebook is that Facebook has grown from a small project to a very, very big project. Facebook started in 2005, 2006, one of the two. And first started in 2004. Then it went global in like 2005. Now, how many people created Facebook? 3 people created Facebook. Mark and some of his other friends. So, first of all, it was just a college idea whereby they wanted to just create it for people in Harvard. Then later, it moved from Harvard to the US. Then from US to all over the world. Now, think about how your application is going to affect people that are not just in your own vicinity, but people all over the world. That requires a lot of work, a lot of manpower. Now, if, for instance, now Mark does not really code again. He doesn't really write his code. He's now more into an administrative, role in Facebook. So he needs other people to maintain what he has built. You understand? That's why you have developers, a lot of developers. And apart from that, you have a lot of features. There are sometimes that the way Facebook is going to work in Nigeria is not the same way Facebook is going to work in the US. You need to have people in different locations to manage all of these applications because it has now gone from a local project to a global project. You understand? That's why you have a lot of developers around the world. In fact, even if it is only in Nigeria, you will still have a lot of developers working on that particular product because you need to make it scale, and at least you need like 10 developers, 5 to 10 developers working on such a big project because you need to scale. You need a lot of brain work. Coding is not just about one person. Coding is not just about understanding what to do. It's about actually doing those things, and doing those things requires a lot of knowledge. So you need to combine knowledge. You need to combine your brain to develop something very, very big. So that's one of the reasons why you have developers working on a lot of projects. And apart from that, there's also something that I need you to get. Let's say you have a startup idea, right? Let's say you have a startup idea and you want to build something. One thing that you need to know is that some of these things you cannot do it on your own. You're a front-end developer. Right now, let's say next very soon you become a back-end developer, full stack. But right now, you're a front-end developer. How do you build a well-functioning application? I'm asking you. To write code, right? But how do you build something like Facebook without a back-end developer? It's not possible. That's what I'm saying. So you see why you need developers now and not just one person. So, and building something like Facebook is not one person's job. Something as big as Facebook, not one person's job. You understand? So you need to be multiple people working on this particular feature every single time. You understand? So concurrently, or what is it? So you work on it on different code bases. So that's why you need a version control system. And where you start is through what? Is through Git. Like I said, I think Facebook has their own VCS. They have their own version control system that they use. So not everybody uses Git. Not everybody uses it, but Git is the most popular VCS. The only time that you probably not use Git is probably when the company you are working for they have their own VCS. So you are going to change from Git to their own. They're going to onboard you and explain how to use their own VCS, and then you can start using. But for now, you need to understand what Git is, how to track changes in project over, and how to use it in collaborating with other developers. Now, in simple terms, Git records the evolution of your project. Can we still see it? Can we still see my screen? Okay. Now, in simple terms, Git basically in simple terms, Git basically records the evolution of your project. So from day 1, day 100, day 1000, say 2,000, 5,000, depending on the amount of time you use it. That is what it does because of the evolution of the project. Now, we've talked about Git. We've talked about Git. Talked about a lot of things under Git. How then do we implement Git? We move to the next one. And the next point is what GitHub. Now, GitHub is a cloud-based Git repository hosting service. Now, again, do not worry about the big English. Worry about what it actually does. Yes, you have Git. How do you implement Git? Use GitHub. Simple. Again, you have Git. You said, okay, Git keeps history of your code changes, revert to earlier versions of something, something breaks. Well, how do you now do all of these things? What tool do you use in doing all of these things? You use GitHub. Just like I said, you have a lot of version control system. It's the same way you have a lot of Git tools. You have GitHub, you have Git Bash, you have a lot of them. But GitHub is actually the most popular one that people use. You understand it now? So that's one thing about GitHub. Now, sorry, I'm coming. As I said, how do you now keep the history of the changes? How do you refer to earlier versions of something? How do you do all of things? Use GitHub. Now, sorry, go ahead first before I continue. Like I said, it's the popular one. It's the one that I know. It's the one that I use. You understand? So, like I said, you have other BCS because sometimes some companies don't want they don't want their information on it. You understand? So they build their own BCS and then they onboard their developers on how to use their own BCS. How do they build it? I don't know.
I don't know. So, but that's what's something about it.
So now, one thing that GitHub allows you to do is first, it store Git repository online. That's what a repository is. Second thing is that it shares code with others. Third, collaborate on projects. Fourth is that it manage versions and contributions. Then the fifth one is that it reviews and merge codes. So I'm going to start from the first one. Store Git repositories online. Now, like I said, Git is to what? Use the word managing code history. How do you manage code history? You need to first of all store whatever you've done online. And that's what GitHub, that's what GitHub does. Git will take your project and store it for you. Secondly, allows you to share code with others. How do you contribute? How do you collaborate with other developers? You have to do towards share this code. Then the third is collaborate on projects, like I said. Manage versions and contributions, review and merge code. Now, when I say review and merge code, so for instance, I'm working on that gym application, gym design that I sent to you. So you work on the header, and I want to work on the bar. What happens? We need to first of all review the codes that we worked on and merge both of them together so they can have one application. We are merging from your own system and this from your system. Merge it together so that what happens is become one application. That is what Git does. Now, Git does not replace, sorry, GitHub does not replace what? It uses it. You understand what I'm trying to say? It is actually GitHub is actually what? Using Git for all of these things. Now, okay, I think we can all go ahead and build all of these things. So, what is a repository? Forget repository first. But one thing that I want you to do right now is I need you to create a your first. I need to create a GitHub application. Create an account on GitHub rather. Register a GitHub account and then before we move on to the next point on that Git. So I'm going to stop the recording here and then we're going to do that together right now. So the first